We are gathering some of our young professionals with some of our former presidents to look forward to the future and reminisce on the past. First, I'd like to thank Brian for participating in the Young Professionals Fireside Chats today. Next, I'd like for the Young Professional Committee members to introduce themselves. Jacqueline, would you like to go ahead?
Thanks, Karen. Hi, my name is Jacqueline Buskop. I've been actively involved as a full-time member at the ISA Houston section for the past 2 years. I currently serve as Education Director for the Houston section. I'm also Social Media Chair for the Process Measurement and Controls Division. And I've been involved with the YP Committee with my fellow members since its inception as the Young Professionals Task Force in 2019.
Hi, I'm Emily Henry. I've been a member of ISA since 2018. I've gotten to be involved in a few different areas so far, including the Digital Transformation Committee, the Young Professional Committee, which we're hosting Fireside Chats right now under, and I've also served as president of my local section, the Western Carolinas section. So I'm very excited to be here.
Thanks. And Brian, would you like to give a short introduction as well?
Yeah, I would like to think of myself as a young professional, but the grey hair may change that a small bit. Yes, I was one back in probably the 70s. That's the 1970s, guys, not the 1870s. But anyway, I started, I suppose I live in Ireland. Having been president, it shows that we're international. We had Pinozani, we had Brazil, we had Ireland. So ISA is an international organisation. But when I started off, I started my time as an apprentice electrician, and always wanted to be a kind of a teacher because I felt that they had 3 months off in the summer and that's where I wanted to go. So I went to night school while I was doing my apprenticeship and felt that I was learning more, and I suppose I was lucky enough that I did it early as a young professional. And when I joined Irish Fertilising Industries, it was a new company in 78, and it was modern technology. We had electronics, we had TTL logic and stuff that wasn't there, because you must remember at that time we had the pneumatic 3 to 15 psi, right? Then we moved on to 4 to 20. Now I know this is all history to you guys, but I actually lived through this. We then had an introduction to PLCs with DCSs, but nowadays everybody takes everything to be electronic, and it wasn't in those days. So I had a good learning curve. But I think the most important thing for me was I had a good mentor. In that when I joined IFI, the engineering guy at the time, Jim Cochran, was an ISA guy, and he guided us all to do things that normally we wouldn't have looked at, because everyone's going to work and finish and play football or whatever it is that you play, be it tennis. So in that sense, I had a good foundation, and from that then I did 11 years with the company and found that we were kind of not moving, and I moved into sales. I don't know why. I thought there was again more money in that side, and I learned fast there wasn't. But I was lucky that hazardous areas was an area that I specialised in, and I did it for my engineering membership of the British Engineering Council. I do a thesis on hazardous areas. So I became a kind of a half a specialist. I wouldn't call it a specialist, but there was an opening then with measurement technology at Druck, and we were using galvanic isolators. They were coming in, whereas the old days we had barriers. Now, this is probably foreign language to most of you guys because it's galvanic isolation and so on from now. But so that was where I was going, and then I found I was doing design of loops for the engineering houses like the Jacobs and so on, and then I said, hang on a sec, why I'm not over that side earning another zero on my wage packet, and I moved into design. So we were looking at design. I had the years behind me, and I worked with Fluor, Daniel, again a lot of American companies, Jacobs Engineering. I had worked on projects for Eli Lilly, Pfizer, Warren Lambert, and GSK. So I was moving into the pharmaceutical area, which was coming online, and that was, again, I call it luck, but I suppose you make your own luck. It just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And you know, I came through the engineering, design, control systems, and automation from a hardware and software side. So I went from electrical right through the whole scope, and I think that's very important for young engineers in that whatever you start out in, whether it's process, mechanical or electric, you can move into other areas. And yeah, I think that's key for people. Don't be stuck in what you graduated in, because there's a bigger picture. So inside in that, I got married and I had four boys and one girl, and everybody moved into engineering, but I didn't tell them. I told them keep away from it. But my hobbies then would have been like ISA, and then I did a lot of sailing at Chamber of Commerce for a good bit, and now I'm moving into the grandkids. Well, they're my wife's grandkids. I'm too young to have grandkids, but so that's where that's kind of the summary of where I am today. And in that period, I kind of went from a member of ISA right up through the line to president, and that's another story, as I say. Okay.
Perfect, great. We'll go ahead and get started with our fireside chats, and I will turn everything over to Emily and Jacqueline.
Thank you so much for that great background, Brian. That's pretty incredible, moving through all those different areas. You mentioned early on about how ISA is an truly international organization, and I'm curious what you think. Do you think there are differences in how various countries perceive the automation profession, and what some of those might be?
Yeah, I suppose I've been fortunate in that I've seen how American companies are organized. I've done projects in Europe, and I've done some work in the Middle East. So there's a couple of things. One is culture. Two is the historical of different people from different areas. And you then take the education system. In the US, work with Matthew Maynard now on the universities, and with Mark Tarrant in Canada. They're totally different programs to what we do in Ireland and what we do in Europe. And if you talk to the guys in Saudi, they have a totally different program again. And if we go down to Ana Christie in Brazil, totally different. So I think automation means a different word to different parts of the world that you're in. And the next question then is, how do you get a degree in electrical engineering and get a degree in mechanical? Where can you get a degree in automation? Because first of all, it's such a wide area, but the different countries don't treat automation as it should be. It's either electrical or it's inside in the IT area. And I think a lot of that is to do with the industry, because in industry, if you're in pharmaceutical, automation is got its own division. But if you're in an IT environment, a company like Intel or that, the automation isn't a group; it's actually part of IT. And if you move into some of the industry like packaging, they don't have automation; they have IT, but they're mechatronic guys. They're it's a different name. So we have a struggle in ISA and in the Automation Federation of how we brand the word automation. And I followed some recent stuff on Connect where engineers were defining it, and I just think an automation is for somebody who's got a degree or a qualification or a technician in an area, but moves in and solves the problem of an automated system. So that's kind of my understanding. And why is it? It's not defined as a particular engineering degree course. So I'm aware of, for example, Madrid do a degree in automation. I'm trying to figure out. There's a couple of places in the US, but it's not a well-known international brand. Automation isn't.
I wonder how that issue kind of resolves in international, like industrial, like chemical companies. Like if you're doing the same type of work just in different countries, does the word automation still have those different implications?
Yeah, so I suppose when I did a lot of projects in automation and in the pharma, particularly industry, Jacqueline, and what I found was that once we're working in Europe, and again, I can only talk from my background, and we follow the IEC standards. And when we go to the US, we've got the likes of UL and United Laboratories, the standards. But when you switch then to Saudi, I shouldn't switch to Saudi, the Middle East countries, they're predominantly American due to Aramco and the structure there. So What we find is when we do a design, like with Jacobs now, or Floor, or DPS, when I work with them, when we go into Holland, into Netherlands, we did a project where we had to understand the Dutch standards, and that when we moved to Frankfurt on a particular, not a pharma site, it was a German are totally different. And then I said, why are they all different? But what I then realized was we're different in Ireland as well. So when we take engineers from the US and we bring them in, we have to not retrain them, we just have to restructure their thinking into complying with standards in Europe and Ireland. And the company I now work with, Veolia, we have a bigger problem, because Veolia is both in the US and Canada and Australia. And again, when I'm talking to different people from the different areas, I have to go back and learn what they do, even at my old age. So, Jackie, I don't know. It's a very wide subject, automation.
Yes. Thank you for that. I guess I'll change gears a little bit. In terms of leadership, how do you think your ISA presidency influenced your career, or vice versa?
I think that's an easy one. I suppose I was 60, was I? Well, let's say 30 twice. Let's put good figures on it. Figures you'd understand. So when I took over, or when how did the presidency influence my career? If it was about 10 years earlier, I would have been able to answer you. But I think it was a reverse for me, because I had gone through my career in that, I'd gone through the farm, I'd gone through project management, I'd gone through running different companies, but I had previously done a lot of work with the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber of Commerce for people is where local business come together and they work through it. So I went through the process of president-elect and past president of the Chamber, but we had a restructuring program in our area where we changed our whole structure from the CEO level right through finance, right through building and so on. So I had that kind of background, and when I look at how did ISA influence my career, I think I was able to give that information back to ISA, because we were restructuring at the time, and through I'm probably going to be shot here now for using the wrong president, but with Peggy Coon, we turned eyes and with Peggy Coon, then we went on to Rick Group and Jim Keaveney and Steve Plants, where there was a restructuring of ISA. And then we also had the likes of Debbie Evie, Andrea, Rachel, Michelle, and Karen Yu now in the last couple of years, where we're all going through a restructuring an organization, ISA, and it's needed. So we look on, I'm going to call them the elder lemons, not me, the other crowd, who can give their feedback in and help develop so I think I just happened to be in the right place, and for some people the wrong time, but it just, I had a different experience to bring to ISA rather than, but since being president, it's definitely helped me in my own company in Veolia. It certainly moved me up through different stages that I wouldn't been able to get to without the experience of ISA. And ISA gave me a lot of experience as well in South America and in India and Canada and US that I'd be forever grateful to ISA for. So I think I brought something to ISA, and I think I've taken something back, and I think that's that'd be my thinking on it.
That's exciting to hear. You mentioned a restructuring of the organization, and as we think it's getting larger, especially from years and years ago, it can be a tendency to have the institution, we'll say, dampen inspiration. Have you seen any ways that you can keep that from happening, kind of continue to foster the inspiration and innovation?
I suppose like all organizations, and it doesn't matter whether you're a tennis club, a football club, or an engineering society, you find that the same people turn over and do the same work. So, and people come and go. And I think one of the problems with any organization, and ISA is one of them, and it's probably harder because it's a worldwide organization, you have a tendency to keep putting the same people in to do the same jobs. And you then stunt growth, you don't bring in new ideas. So I think to answer that, as we get larger, we obviously ISA have a strategy that's in place, and each of the presidents, Eric Kostman this year, Paul Groom last year, and it's going to go forward to Steve. Like we as presidents have gone through that learning curve over 3 to 4 years, so we're carrying it. We work with a good headquarters and excellent staff. Look, who's Charlie, we've Charlie and Dalton, like they're, I better be careful, they're mature people with a lot of years, and so they can see where the organization is going, and they can pull some of the, the leaders who are G for go, all, drive on. And I think we need to remember that it's not a sprint race, it's a marathon we're doing, and none of us in our time can do it, and include staff, can't do it, but together, working as a team going forward, we can. The main thing is that we allow younger people to actually come forward with ideas, but we also must look at, there is more, it's not North America. ISA, there's excellent guys. I've met them in India and in my trips to South America, in China, and we need to go, and what we all must understand, and Jacqueline's going to be upset at this, is that we all have a problem understanding other people's accents, and in my case, I have a problem with the Texas accent, right? And the reason I say that is my wife and I visit Texas a lot, particularly Houston, and there's times I've got to say, what did you say? So, even us who speak English, we think we speak it right. We need to understand that the people with Spanish or Portuguese or whatever their international languages have to translate to English and English back, and we must understand that they have a lot to give. We just have to work at their pace, and I think that's a challenge for us mature people as well as young professionals like yourselves. So as we get larger, we need to make sure we collaborate and integrate and communicate with the global side, and I think we're doing that. I hope Karen can see that as she spends more time in ISA, and there are a lot of people worldwide who are experts that we should use. So
that's a really interesting insight. The part where you were talking about how important it is to try to understand people, how difficult that translation can be. I feel like we're very lucky to be in a time where we have so many translation tools and communication through the internet. Like, writing something on an email and then translating it can be a lot easier than calling someone up on the phone these days. So on top of those kind of like translation issues, how do you encourage productive international communication? Not only just, English to French, but how do you spur, ingenuity or excitement, I guess?
Whatever industry people are in, be it mining, petroleum, gas, pharmaceutical, standard manufacturing, food, we all have the problems, no matter what part of the world we're in. And I think the divisions have a very important role here, because the divisions people, are SMEs, subject matter experts in their area, and they're not interested in the section activities as such. But if the sections work with the divisions, and they'll actually grow the sections from the divisions, and if the divisions work with the sections, they'll integrate into where these people are and how we can spread it, and that's the key. But let me go back to your question. So how do we communicate? I think the English language is probably engineering, like whether we like it or not. And I work with particularly Germans who have excellent technical English, but they can't communicate socially because they have a language. And so I think it's of great help if somebody can do Spanish and Portuguese, for example, right? Or French if you're Canadian and French in Europe. But there's some very good. When I spent time in China with ISA, I had a translation person, and it worked fine. But a lot of the students at the time and the younger engineers were well able to speak English, and it's an accepted engineering language. But as you said, with the tools are there nowadays, you can actually speak into I'm going to call it the size of a phone, and you speak in English, and it'll translate to whatever language you want. And if I'm out in Texas, no, if I'm out in Singapore, well, Singapore's English, but okay, so Malaysia, right? I can speak in English, press a button that says translate to Malaysian, and the guy or the person I'm talking to will understand. Likewise, if I'm asking them where's the local place to have a pint, right, or a bar or whatever, they'll tell me exactly, and it'll come back to me in English. So, but I think from a young engineering perspective, it helps that we integrate on our own company young engineers who are just starting out, and bring them into our organisation. We shift our Irish engineers into France or into Germany or Holland, and I think there's a lot of opportunities that young engineers now have of going out and spending time in other countries, understanding and bringing that information back to their own company as well. But I don't think there's any magic wand that I'm aware of anyway. Yeah.
Excellent points. Yeah. There's a lot of things that can be improved upon and continue to delve into to improve that communication, it sounds like. I'm curious, during your presidency, what was one of your biggest challenges and something you were most proud of?
The biggest challenge I had was being president. I thought it was a simple job. You walk in, you wear the badge, and you talk at a couple of conferences, and you go to an executive board, and everybody's great, and we all move on. Doesn't quite work like that, but I still go for to be president. The biggest challenge was working within the structure of ISA, where we had a strategy to do the 5 goals, and we were moving out into that era. We had to bring the mature people of my level and bring them into, this is the way we have to go, and we have to adjust the structure, the MOP of the organisation. We then had to re-educate our people in that. As a board, we retrained our board, and that's the 3 boards: the operation, technical, and geographic as well, because it's from that group. I say basic standards, divisions, and geographical members. So we started by putting a strategy in place. We then looked at the training our executive board to make executive decisions, not just do what they've always done and rubber stamped. And there was serious decisions to be made, but people, we had a wide selection of people, which was good. We had young people, and we had female, and we had the right gender. We had a good cross section. It wasn't just old fogies just setting out policies. The challenge was to get everybody to agree. The challenge was, and it's a challenge for everybody, whether in your day job or not, if you don't work as a team, it isn't going to happen. We worked well as a team at the executive level, because there was a continuity there. But to work with on the wider scope, we had members from Canada, we had a Saudi, with South American, so they all had their own interpretations and able to bring stuff to the board. And I think what really worked, and Andrea would have been one of the drivers, following on from Debbie, but this was retraining the leader, having leadership meetings early, face-to-face leadership meeting. And it's a pity this year with COVID, we've lost that continuity. The challenge, we didn't have those challenges, and the structure, it took probably an 8 to 10 year period. Like, I just came into it and was one piece of a jigsaw, and Paul Groom carried that last year. Eric is doing it this year, but Eric has got other struggles that I didn't have. So I think I had a quiet year, I had a good year. But the probably the most proud part, or that I took most pleasure out of, was the opportunity to meet different student sections. When I was in Mumbai at the DLC, I got to see 5 universities and get to go down and talk to the students, and we rushed our dinner so that we spent time. It's the same when I was in Sao Paulo. I went to 2 universities there, was at the State Games in Calgary, massive, and I had the privilege of speaking to them, but working with the 14 teams, that was phenomenal. And then when I go back into Europe, we set up a students section where we had a competition back in Milan. I think it was president-elect, and seeing and working with those. But the one message that was common, and this may come back to your question earlier, Jacqueline, one message that was common is we don't want paper. We want everything on our lap, on our tablet, phone, and ISA have to come to grips with that. And we talked about this, Karen, at Charlie Robinson and Dalton and Rachel, where how does ISA put this new, our old systems and what we do as in the standards and practices and cyber, how do we put that into the modern era for young professionals? Now, if you get that answer, let me know, because I'm struggling at work with that as well. So that's one thing I discovered. But what was very important to me is that the president and the president-elect need to visit the 14 districts, need to do the divisions, need to get out to where the ground person is. And I'm saying the same for staff like Mary Ramsey as CEO, Rachel, Andrea, you with the districts, right? Michelle as well. We need to be sending our staff out to the volunteer side to get a feel for. You were on the call with District 12 this week, Karen, and you could get a feel, but if you were with the people, you'd understand the language problems, but how some sections are running very well and how some sections aren't. And the same with divisions. Some are doing very well and others need improvement. But it's a team effort. It's right across, the whole lot of us, and we have to give the younger professionals an opportunity to come in and make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but we have to make the mistake and learn from it. So that's kind of, and it hasn't changed. That's what I've learned from ISA from my time as president and going through the chain.
Yeah, I think that's what was so great about conferences, is that we had people from all districts and different countries got to come together in one place and talk to each other. And about travel, I would love to go visit other districts, but I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon because of our current conditions. But that's also why virtual meetings are pretty great. Like, you're in Ireland and we're all over the United States, so we can still have these meetings.
Become president and you'll be able to do that, if you that's the secret. So a year or two and you'll be president. That's good. Okay.
Yeah. So currently I feel in our divisions we're kind of facing some difficulties in increasing communication between international members. How do you think divisions can foster collaboration between divisions without traveling, I guess, to their location?
Divisions work with the experts coming through from the different hubs. So if you look at take petroleum and gas, Middle East is a good area, Canada, Texas area. So straight away, you in those areas, you have the division people. They're the experts worldwide, and they set the standards with Charlie and his group. And there's a difference between a standards guy and a divisions guy, but the standards lead into developing the divisions people. And how does one become into divisions? You know them from your own companies, or they've come online to a conference and they've been given a talk as a specialist in such an area. And if divisions keep those people, they can do it through Skype, they can do it through conferences that are half days with speakers. I think that's what we've got to be looking for now. But if divisions work with members, members are part of companies. As members, we're all working, or most of us are working in organizations, small or big, it doesn't matter. But so if divisions canvas, that's probably the wrong word, the members to find out who's a specialist in their area, that leads them on to, now that person moves into maybe divisions, but what the sections have to do then is work with the divisions to find out who's the expert in mining in South Africa, who's the gas expert out of Texas in Galveston, or down in Doha in Qatar. So it's really a combination of them working together. And then I had standards here. There's 4,000 people doing standards, right? And some aren't even members of ISA, they're the experts. Why aren't the divisions going to those people to feed back in? And why aren't the sections working off those guys, and it's all communication, cooperation between the groups, and collaboration of where can you help me and I help you. And I'll give you a real life situation. In my case, 3 years ago, I was working with Yoli in a particular company, it was pharma, and we had a problem that we got a massive costing in to do a project to do all the relief valves in tank farm, 87 tanks. This is short, believe you me. Now, I was sitting in the US saying, there's nobody in Ireland can do it. Who do I get? And I met Donald Dunn from, you might know him, Jacqueline, from Texas, from Houston. And I was saying to, as we were speaking, I have a problem with work lads. I have to try and get this thing, and we have to comply with the new IEC regs. And Donald says, what are you doing? And I said, I've got these relief valves and I got to do this on tanks. And he goes, hang on a sec, I did that job only, whatever, a year ago, 6 months ago. Tell me what you want. And I said, okay, so we left the meeting. We were having a social beverage, coffee, at the bar, and from that I contacted Donald the following week. Next thing, Donald tells me who the guys in America are, and here we are. I solved the problem for my company from a divisions guy who was tied in to his own section, and so that's just one example of where it works. And I think all of us, and I included the older guys as well, we need to work with our own networks, but we also have to work with the division networks, and then we have all the advantage of using standards. And between all of it, it's communication, and it's cooperating, and there's one ISA, and we mean it. We don't just have this logo, one ISA. If we don't accept the one ISA group of three, we shouldn't be there, because there is a lot of information. All you got to do is find the right person, ISA, and somebody knows somebody who does. That's why I always ring headquarters and they tell me. No, genuinely, you find those people, right? And it's all networks and networking, and that's one thing I've learned from ISA. And I think about 30 years in ISA now, something like that. But I wouldn't have a problem picking up a phone to Jean-Pierre in France and saying, Jean-Pierre, I have a problem with the validation standards on whatever it is, IEC 7904, and he goes, oh yeah, well, and then now he'll tell me. So likewise, I've guys ringing me from Europe particularly, and on pharma questions. I might know the answer, or I've come across it, but I do know who to send them on to. And I think that's where, from a young engineer, young professionals, you need to do that networking. You need to be part of that, and it's not, you're helping others, but you're also helping yourself. Because it helps in your day job, and your employer will be a lot happier then,
You've got to be a networking maniac, everybody.
Well, yeah, LinkedIn, make sure everybody's a member of LinkedIn, and and change divisions. Like I'm in project management division. I'm in the pharma. I used to be in, I can't remember, but I joined different divisions to find people and solve problems, and it's something that you shouldn't be just in your own. If you're an expert in oil and gas, go into mining, find out what they're doing in pharma, go into project management, and wastewater. Like every industry is wastewater, so why not be part of that division? And it's all about just taking, instead of being down on the ground looking at the grass growing and the flowers, right? Just take up 10 feet or 100 feet. Let's look at a bigger picture where you can see the color of the grass and the flowers. And that will help us all, particularly young professionals starting off in a career.
Definitely. Along the lines, I guess, of that networking suggestion for engaging international members and collaboration between sections and divisions, what are some additional best practices to grow and retain engagement with international members?
Okay, so everything is information. And I'm kind of diversing a small bit, Emily, from your question, but if you take cyber security, the 62443, I see 62443, that it really doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the South Pole, the North Pole, or you're on the equator. That's a problem for every company, no matter what manufacturing or whatever your industry is. So that's a very easy one, because it's a common, and we'll all learn from that. But the best practice to grow. We have to engage with members. We do that through sections. We have to engage with divisions, and the division people, can give a lot to sections by, why can't a wastewater expert in Canada turn around and do a conference call with somebody in England or Brazil? And if we use the modern technology now, you don't have to fly there. One of the biggest problems when I was doing conferencing with people, when we organised them here, we would have to pay the cost, and you up your price for the ticket. And one way we could do it is more, like we're doing here, is Fireside chat, but it could also be a conference online. And the guy who's an expert from Canada could tie in with, maybe somebody else on quality from US, and a third guy from, and just, it can be whatever subject it is. So I think if we start looking at, and you need the best guys, like, with the phone and Instagram and, what all that jazz that you have nowadays, like, you should be able to pull that together. And, we're looking at the younger generation, the professionals coming forward to say, look guys, having a conference inside Boston on the 14th of November sounds great, but it's no good to the guys in Houston. They're not going to fly. So maybe we need to have that conference in Boston, maybe, and it's on wastewater, but we have people there giving the presentations. But why not make that live and send it worldwide, and have a guy from Europe doing the talk instead of flying in, which is a loss to his time and company. So these ideas this is where you come into play, because you know what's best, and you guys have to drive the mature generation to, we want to do it this way. And the answer is, no, you can't, because it didn't work. But your answer then is, look lads, let's do a simple one. Let's do a small one first, find out the problems, and then say, okay, now let's make it to a bigger one. It's up to you to come forward, really. And I'm kind of putting it the other way now. Yep.
You've given us so many little pieces of information on like what young professionals can do to like communicate outside of our little bubbles, which sometimes I think I personally get a little too comfortable in my bubble, and it's hard to want to get out there and have that international relationship with people. So when you think back to when you were a young professional, kind of, maybe you had it doesn't seem like you were ever not a people person. But what is like something you wish you knew as a young professional that you think, now that you're older and you realize that really would have helped you had you known, what would that be?
Yeah, I suppose it's, 30 odd years ago, but again, like 20 plus 10 and plus another bit. And when I started out, like literally in college, we had to take notes. And I relied on the fellow alongside me when I missed that class for whatever reason. And, nowadays it's different, but we also had only a fax machine and a photocopier. So it meant that if I needed information, I had to get a book from somebody, which was probably 5 to 10 years old. So I was learning old information. And that's fine, because in the industry I was in, which was chemical and pharmaceutical, they were always kind of 5 years behind. Nobody ever changed. If it's doing it right, don't change it. So, but the problem I had is I didn't have the availability of a PC, a laptop, the internet, my phone, and I'd love to have it then instead of now. That sounds very odd to you guys, and I appreciate that because you're so used to it. But so we had to make our own. ISA was an excellent method of getting books. And I mean, I used to have a load of books that we bought, and it took weeks to get them. So what normally happened was the guys from last year gave us their books, and we bought them for the guys next year. So, but we found a way around it. But I'd love to be back now with all this technology, because I would just drive my mentors mad, with. But I think one thing I did find was that I never had a problem asking a question, and it was always a stupid question, but you've got to go through so many stupid questions first, and then you get the right question. And I have this problem with the guys in our teams, right? I run 4 sites, and they won't make a mistake. They're afraid. What I say to them is, look, guys, let's do it to the best knowledge at the time. Let's make a decision. But if we make a mistake, we learn from it. It's when we make the same one again, let's analyze how we didn't learn. So, you guys have to find a mentor and somebody you can work with. It's not always the first person. You find them, and you've got to get on with them. But you got to ask the question, look, I'm not sure what I'm doing. Should I kind of do this and tease out the problem? Again, I was lucky that the guy, Jim Coughlin, in my case, he used to let me make the mistakes, and then I go back and say, but Jim, you knew I was doing that. He'd say, but you wouldn't have learned, right? That kind of era is gone, and I think you need to get that back. So don't not make mistakes. And I've made plenty of them, not now, but in the old days, right? I still make them, but you don't see them as much. So, your job isn't your end game. Your job is a method to get through life, but use your mentor, ask the stupid questions, and then you won't keep asking them. Don't be afraid to make mistakes is a big one. And that took me a long time to learn that. I was well late 20s before I learned that, don't cover the mistakes. And when I was in design, we asked the guys, tell us the mistake first before we go into purchasing, before we go into construction, and we only find a problem when we're commissioning. Now we have a bigger problem because we're holding up a manufacturing plant, and then we got to go back 16 weeks or whatever it is. So, look, we all go through the mistakes, but talk to a mentor. Don't make the mistake that I made or the mentor made. Try and learn from that. So when you're passing you won't have grey hair, it'll all be dyed, but you can pass that on to your next then when you're mentoring, okay? Long-winded answer. I don't know if you got the message there or not yet.
I always heard, don't be afraid to make mistakes, but try not to make the same mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like there's an old saying there, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So, you should listen twice and only speak once, but when you make the first mistake, that's fine. 1 ear heard it. And if you make this mistake again, the second ear heard it, but there is no third ear. So don't make it a third time, yeah.
I had not heard that, but I like it.
Okay.
And I can certainly attest to learning from those mistakes in your early design, being critical to forming your own steps to mentoring later. I haven't gotten through much of it, but that's certain situations I've been able to learn from my own mistakes and pass that on to others. So I've enjoyed that. For our final question, we're curious kind of what drew you initially to ISA, and then what brought you down the path of becoming president?
All right. So ISA was interesting. We got a half day off a year when I was working to go to the ISA conference, a tabletop and telling us about the new technology. So we went in there for literally 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We're seen to be in there and exited home. So that's not what you're supposed to do, but I know it's done. So that's my first introduction to ISA. Again, my mentor, Jim, was an ISA founder member in Ireland, as it turned out, but he never drove any of us into ISA. He guided us to ISA procedures and documentation and books and so on. So when I went into sales, ISA had a very good technical program, still do in Ireland. Once a month we have a technical talk, and it's on various vendors and specialists, and so that was on every month. But when you went to it, you got tea and coffee and biscuits, right? And you also had an opportunity to talk to the guy alongside you. And if you positioned yourself right, you're able to network with people, be it in the industry or be it in engineering design houses or software or whatever. So when that's what brought me to ISA, and I was not joining, and I was still going. And a guy called Billy Walsh, who you all probably know, Billy came up to me. He had black hair then, not white. He came up to me. He said, "You're here a good bit. Here's a form. Fill it in." And I goes, "Yeah." I went, "No." He said, "You've been here now a number of meetings. About time you filled it in." And I got, honestly, guys, was blunt at that. So I filled it in. And then I came into ISA, and then I got landed with working on the Constitution. I did 3 or 4 years of standards, and then I began to learn a bit more. And all of a sudden, everybody looked around and said, "Well, you're one of the longest fellows here. It's about time you went forward for secretary. And from there to president. So I was president in 2000. And again, in Europe, same thing. But one of the good things with ISA was I happened to go to a marathon, Philadelphia. And, you know, the massive, like we won't see it this year, unfortunately, there's a massive honours and awards where the flags were flown and bands were playing and it was a great dinner. And it gave me an opportunity to meet all these high-class guys in ISA, which I only saw in the internet or wherever. So that gave me a feel. So I went in then and I worked in the Irish section, and I went to Europe and did a couple with District 12, because District 12 is like another section and we all work well together. And out of that, I kind of lost track as I got involved with the Chamber of Commerce. Next thing, I got a call one day to say, would you do Vice President of Europe? And I go, not a hope. Well, we're actually stuck and you need to be in the US in 3 weeks' time in San Diego. There's a conference. And I goes, yeah, but it's all right, Billy Walsh is going, right? So, and that's how and then I got onto the Geographic Assembly, and from there I got railroaded for whatever reason into the executive. And we were looking around 2016. I've done a lot of work with the former presidents there through different groups, you know, Peggy and Jim Keaveney and Rick Roop and that. And we, you know, the fellows saying, yeah, you could do it. And I said, no, I don't have the time. But you know, we had a very good Ireland section. We'd had Onery and Billy Walsh, Declan Norton, Kevin Dignam, Dave O'Brien. They've all been through the ISA, and so I had a good bunch to work through. And then they were saying, you know, it's about time we put someone from Ireland forward. And I'm saying, yeah, you know, Billy, Declan, you need to go. And for various reasons, they didn't, you know, for, you know, company-wise or family-wise. So then I just said, they said, look, you need to go. And I said, look, no interest. It's not too much work and so on. But I said, look, let me go forward, and sure, we won't get elected. And then, so it's by default, like you don't set out to do these things. It just happens, and it's been in the right place at the wrong time, and that happens to me a lot. So that's another thing you should learn. Don't be in the right place at the wrong time. Always be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So from there, like I had some very good mentors, and even when I was going through the presidency of elect and president, when there's decisions to be made, I used to go to former presidents and guys that I know in divisions and standards, and also in sections, that I'd say, look, can I have your advice on this, whatever? And people give it to me, and some of it made sense and others didn't. But you're never alone, and the thing you must always do is listen to advice, right? You don't have to take it, listen to it, but you have to make a decision. And when you take the advice of different people, you know, you can only make the decision on the best knowledge you have, but don't just make it a decision on someone else's advice. Take it in and maybe need a third person. So, and that's what drew me to ISA, because again, we had some very good technical meetings, and especially if I had a problem on my day job, I would be able to go to a technical meeting and find someone who I could tell them my problem, and next thing I get a phone call 3 days later, so-and-so said you had a problem, and I go, yeah. So that's where, like, the local sections is vital, the divisions is vital, the standards are vital, and nobody can be in all three. Like, you can't be an expert in all three. So that to me, that's how I got into ISA, and I'm trying to get out of it. But now in Europe, I'm going back in with the students division. We just had a thing there, which is great, because I have a fierce interest in all our young engineers in our own company. We send them back into night school. It's actually mandatory at their interview, but they don't know it, that they have to go to night school to either do process or mechanical or electrical, because when you're young enough, you can do it, and it adds to their knowledge and availability when they go for the next job. I'm always in favour of people leaving a company, going out and coming back. I think if you stay too long, you're over. You've just been like a horse with blinkers on. You only get that if you go out, find out someone else does it, and bring that information back, or something else. I think that's an important message for young engineers as well. Because you join company X, you don't have to stay there. Now maybe you did that out of it, and I'm fine. But you know, that's how I kind of got into ISA.
Thank you for sharing that. That's great.
So I think that concludes our questions for today. Thank you again, Brian, for joining us. And
no problem, thank you.
Yeah, as always, thank you for your continued support of ISA.
And I look forward to all of you developing your careers in ISA. And when you get to be president or thereabouts, I'd say, yep, I knew them years ago, Okay. And thanks again for the opportunity to speak to everyone. And okay, enjoy the weekend. And we'll talk
great
again soon.
meeting you. Thank you so much for sharing with us. We enjoyed it.
Thank you.